then you have the next biggest square is Fort Pierce, and then you have a really small square, which is St. Lucie Village. Now, why do I offer that as a piece of information? Because oftentimes I'll hear people say, well, I live in Port St. Lucie County. Well, you live in Port St. Lucie, but you live in St. Lucie County. So that's important to know, just from a basic standpoint, just correct this to people now and then. The other part of that is, St. Lucie County has a set of rules for countywide. We have a set of rules for unincorporated county. Those are the things that we're responsible for. Port St. Lucie is responsible for their incorporated area, that is Port St. Lucie, the city. Fort Pierce is a municipality, also incorporated, responsible for the areas that which are inside the boundaries of Fort Pierce. And then St. Lucie Village is a very small area. They have their own rules, but they largely follow all county rules and have some provisions that the county provides for them service-wise. So some of the things we want to understand, and I'll start with unincorporated county. Unincorporated county includes the port, the airport, a lot of the farming areas outside of Fort Pierce, because we have some areas that have been annexed, some areas that have not. You can drive down Avenue O, and on one side of the street you'll be in the city of Fort Pierce, on the other side of the street you'll be in unincorporated county. And so there's some really strange things that happen with that. So when you're looking at buying property, always pay attention to whether you're in the city or in the county or in the city of Port St. Lucie, because all of those things come with their own set of rules and costs. Port St. Lucie has a large number of costs associated in your tax bill that you don't have in an unincorporated county. Same thing with Fort Pierce. Utilities-wise, Port St. Lucie has a fee because in the 1990s they created a utility and they actually put a charge on everybody's utility for water and sewer to be able to build out that entire system. Fort Pierce has a very old system, we heard that earlier in JP's conversation, in which the utility, water and sewer is in some areas 100 years of age. So let me try and get to some of the things that we've been doing in the county. All of you are familiar with the boom and bust theory, right? You're all here because things are going swimmingly and everybody wants to get in on the gig, right? Everybody wants to make a few bucks. So what I focused in on as an elected official moving forward in 2008 was we had just hit the cliff. And I call it we hit the depression, because it was a depression. Literally, property values dropped off the end of the earth. The county's finances were in total disarray. We counted on rooftops, retirees, and tourism for the longest time. And of course, citrus. So you take all that into consideration, and when citrus went bust because of greening and other elements, citrus psyllid, we lost a huge part of our economy. So when I took office, I wanted to focus on creating an annual economy so that it could reach and can deal with some of the challenges of a high and low of real estate. So what we focused on and started to focus on was manufacturing, distribution, focus on the airport as a jobs creation area. You'll hear in a few minutes how we moved in our roadway reviews in the Transportation Planning Organization, how we look at where roads are being built, what they're focusing on in those areas. So a couple things you want to take into consideration when you're looking at areas to farm. Transportation Planning Organization, looking at where roads are going to be built in the future. And when the county looks at roads, they're looking sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50 years out. For instance, Midway Road has been on the books for over 30 years. It's now being built. It feels like it's being built for 30 years, but nonetheless, it's been on the books for 30 years. Kings Highway. Kings Highway is going to be a huge effort going forward, and that has been on the books for 30 years. Indrio Road is another area that's being expanded to 4 lanes. That's the east-west corridor that connects to US 1. So these roadways are very important for the future of St. Lucie County and each of the cities that come within the boundaries. I raise those things to you because roadways, water, and sewer are probably the biggest parts of what is going to drive the economy of St. Lucie County. Crosstown was also a citizens' initiative, a referendum to tax themselves to pay for what is now going to be about a $135 million bill. And they are actually going to have the grand opening on September 28th. So you're all invited. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, what should we be looking at? You said roadways?
Roadways, utilities, water and sewer, because if somebody wants to develop, they're going to need water and sewer. We no longer permit, unless there's certain circumstance, to actually build without sewer specifically. But you have to have water to run any business. And what has happened in the last 2 years, we were able to create a 16-inch main loop around Indrio Road, down through and past Lakewood Park, all the way out to 95, and then down US 1. So US 1 North has not had development. If you drive up there, you think it's a wasteland, right? Because there's no development. Well, now there's water on that road. And so there's a connection to sewer. So if you're looking at farming areas for commercial or future development for residential, knowing where those utility lines are or where they're projected to go is a benefit to you, knowing how to move forward with what you're going to approach. I'll just start working with some of the developments. The water line that went out Indrio Road to 95 was actually supported by a developer who's going to build 2,500 rooftop units at the corner of Indrio and 95 to the south. They're also going to put a small city in there, not unlike a smaller version of Tradition. So they're already in site plan preview. They spent $1.5 million and they bought 11.5 EUs, meaning that's the units of utility, to actually run that line out there. So they cooperated in a public-private partnership with the county to run that water line out there. Then, if you come further to the east, there's another DRI, a development of regional impact. It's a little less than 980 units, but that's what it was called back when we had DCA in Florida. You don't need to know that. Anyway, this is the 980 unit housing unit that's going to be about Emerson and Johnston, south of Indrio. So that's more developments coming up there. Publix at Emerson and Indrio Road has come in for site plan review. They are getting through the approval process, and I assure you that Publix does not go into a place if they don't know that there's going to be enough to support it. So Publix is going in on Indrio Road at Emerson. It's going to take that whole corner plat, not unlike the plat that you see in Sable Palm. It looks very, very similar when you look on the site plan. Coming further to the east, San Lucie County Fire District is planning a new fire station 7 at Taylor Dairy and Indrio Road. Why are we building that there? One, the fire station that's currently there is obsolete. We can't even fit a proper fire truck in there anymore because they're much larger today. So now we're going to build that there, and we're going to look to the future way out west for another future site for fire stations. So those are the types of things you want to look at when you're projecting where a developer may go. Come further to the east. Now you're at US 1 in Indrio, and you may see at that intersection, there's a light. If you look to the right, there's just a bit of sand over there. It looks like sand. But if you look down over the hill, the developer who was working on that property built a bridge over Dixie Highway. That was an expensive bridge. It probably cost about $5 million. Well, they have now just gotten water too. When we moved that loop around, now that's 680 units that's been projected for that corner of Indrio Road on the east side of US 1. So again, US 1 to the north is going to begin to build out because they have water and sewer. Speaking of water and sewer, something that I've been working on since the first day I got in office was that the sewer plant, let's call it that, the wastewater plant on the island, right? Well, if the county and the city of Fort Pierce were to combine their water and sewer to a North County Utility Authority, you could see how we could actually combine and create areas where water is not existing in unincorporated parts of the city, but also to take down and create new capacity somewhere else that's more beneficial than that which is the wastewater plant on the island. So, some of the things that we've been talking about, and we're negotiating with the city currently and have done so for 5 years, is creating capacity out by the airport on the other side of the ridge, not near the lagoon, so that if there was a failure, you wouldn't damage the lagoon and the environmental concerns. Because the plant here in Irma had a power failure and dumped about 8 million gallons of raw sewage into the lagoon. So the goal is to do that, and so we're talking about that now. We've seen several projections of what that property will look like on the island, with 2 convention-style hotels, with waterfront dining, with shopping and parking to encompass all of that, which would include the Causeway Cove property and the Fort Pierce Utilities property. Now, as you might imagine, that property was deeded from the county to the city, not deeded, it has a reverter clause, and we talked about that actually just a few minutes ago. But that property, once that wastewater plant goes down and it's brownfield and it's cleaned up, now it can be built upon. So they could put actually 2 convention style hotels on there, which would provide a great deal of revenue to the city in their CRA, Community Redevelopment Agency. So you'll hear about that, but in your taxes, when a piece of property goes, use $100, if a piece of property is in the unincorporated, the CRA, and it has a taxable value of $100, but over time, when that property gets built out or increases in value, it's in the CRA, the adjusted value, the profit side of that, goes to the city. It doesn't come to the county. So you can see how that could be a huge amount of revenue that goes to the city of Fort Pierce if they were to develop that. It's expected that build out would be anywhere from $600 million to $1 billion if that were to occur. But it takes being able to move the capacity off the island to some other location so that can actually be redeveloped. So water and sewer, we're looking at water.
Is that 5 years away, 10 years away?
I would say probably 10. Just to permit the capacity of the airport is going to be 5 years either way. We do have the utility already out there in zoning, so that's already been done. It's just a matter of getting to the numbers and how we would actually agree to negotiate the North County Utility Authority. Anyway, moving on. Talked about how we have moved to and we have created our last millage. We set that on Thursday night. Those of you who are going to pay more taxes, that's my fault, I take all the blame. But we have gone through a depression, and we lost nearly $125 million in my very first budget in 2009. You add that with the loss of property values, you add that with the homestead exemptions that we've talked about. There are 2 of those that came in off of the legislature's artificial reduction in value by 9% in 2008. So all that revenue went away, and all the services that were necessary was a vacuum. So we're still working on reserves up until the end of this year. And the reason why we stayed with our millage this year without reducing it is because now we're actually going to be have a balanced budget, not working off reserves, and being able to put $2 million a year in emergency reserves. So we have actually created a very strong budget over the last 10 years and now does not rely on reserves. So that's very important for anybody. You'll hear people say we have the highest millage in the state. We have the highest aggregate millage in the state. But when you take into consideration what the county provides for taxes, which is your fine and forfeiture and your general fund, we are right in the middle. The average average amount that somebody pays in their taxes is about $607. It can be higher, it can be lower, but the average is right in the middle. Literally, if you took the state average in all counties, we're about $7 less than the average in the state. So when someone says we pay the highest millage in the state, we pay the highest aggregate, which includes Port St. Lucie. If you live in Port St. Lucie, their water districts, their all of those things, South Florida Water Management, etc. Same thing for Fort Pierce. So from a financial standpoint, we are now, the county, in a very great place. Why is that important? Here's why. Because we've changed the economics of St. Lucie County by increasing the opportunity for businesses to come here. Utilities are in place, our budget is sound, we have a very high rating, bond rating. Just in the last 4 years alone, here's who we've attracted to St. Lucie County. City Electric. City Electric has an opportunity to go to either Texas or Charlotte or to St. Lucie County. Between Port St. Lucie and St. Lucie County, we provided an opportunity for them to have tax abatement and job grant incentives. Those are only reimbursable. There are no cash outlays, not like the digital domain days where you gave cash and build a building for them and so on and so forth. They have to invest before they'll actually get the benefits of tax abatement. Tax abatement is a job creating tool which provides abatement of taxes for a 10-year period. The first 5 years is zero change, but after that it drops by 20% over the following 5 years. Now, why is that important? Well, if they don't put the investment in, we don't get that taxation anyway. So they're building now a 400,000 square foot building in Port St. Lucie in their new CRA area. There's 1,200 acres there in which all kinds of incentives are being brought forward for businesses to invest. Oculus is a LASIK surgery manufacturer. the actual machines that does LASIK surgery. They're doing 50,000 square feet of development. That's also in that CRA area, the 1,200 acres that Port St. Lucie got from Tradition when they passed it over. There's a wire company. I always forget the name of the wire company, but they are also high-end wire and what do you call it, fiber optic being produced there as well. So I just was at a realtor meeting for the Kings Highway Realtor Group, and they have a lot of commercial folks that meet once a month or once a quarter. And so they're looking at that as an issue. However, $1 a square foot, 50 cents a square foot, up to $9 a square foot. So those negotiating opportunities, if you're in the commercial side, bringing someone to the table, you want to look at all the assets and things that are around that. There's a couple downfalls. One is it has a CDD. If you're going to ask me what a CDD is, I can't remember. I'm having a
Community Development District.
So there's a cost. It's like an HOA. You're paying into it for infrastructure. All right. So there's some challenges to that. So you want to look into what the zoning is, what the CDD's attachments, whether the utilities are there, etc. Coming up to the Fort Pierce area. You talked about Indio Road expanding, Kings Highway expanding. I have been working on the airport connector, actually, to create a connection from 95 and a turnpike near Yeehaw Junction, just a little north of Angle Road. If we're able to make that connection, we can add another turnpike connection there. I have a private investor that actually wants to build the interchange itself. If they go ahead in the public-private partnership, build that interchange, the county and the state could then put the connector from 95 to the airport at St. Lucie Boulevard. So if that happens, some of that process will be a jobs corridor. When I talk about jobs corridor, I'll name some of them in a minute. But since we've been able to put the tax abatement programs together, Maverick Boats has been here for 30 years, expanded into a 100,000 square foot expansion in last year's process. And they expect to actually move forward in phase 2 probably within the next few months. So they'll have 200,000 square foot of new manufacturing right there along St. Lucie Boulevard. Interestingly enough, some of the things that I worked on when I first got elected was expedited plan review. The biggest thing I heard back in 2008, 2009 was it takes forever to get through site plan review, to get the permitting. You're a year, you're 2 years, you're 3 years in the process. We have expedited that. We actually have digital permitting processes. You can go online. You can do submit your plans digitally. We're working on that now. But expedited site plan review. Maverick Boats got that. We actually took them from idea, pre-application to permitting in 8 months. Here's a better one. Pursuit Boats. Pursuit was purchased by a Malibu Boats. I think they're out of Tennessee or Michigan. Anyway, they were purchased in a public offering. But they came to St. Lucie County and said, we can either move to Tennessee, or we can work with you and expand in St. Lucie County. We then provided them with the same kind of tax abatement and job creation grant. They are now building 200,000 square feet of manufacturing. So they're going to expand by more than triple. They well, actually, somebody works for Pursuit here. So they have 220 some people who work there today. When that's built, they're going to double in size. So anybody that wants a job can get a job. There's training available. Career Source research goes. If you know anybody, friends, neighbors, kids that are going to school, they can get training, sometimes free training in the building trades. Whether you're an iron worker, electrical worker, carpenter, all of those things are available through either IRSC or St. Lucie County's Green Collar Apprenticeship Program, which is down by in the old Sand Club off US 1. So there's that. The airport has been a major focus of mine. I spent 25 years in the airline industry, so I have focused on the airport since day one. And when I first came here, that airport was only producing around $100 million in economic engine. In 2013, it went to about $152 million. In 2017, those numbers have increased to over $520 million in economic engine. Those are numbers that come directly from the Florida Department of Transportation. So you can see that the airport is beginning to get a great deal of attention. We put the groundwork for commercial service to come in. St. Lucie County is building a 32,000 square foot MRO hangar out there. You can put two 737s in it. And so we're looking for an operator to actually start doing that work at the airport. Along with that, we project now in 2019 that the airport will have a nearly $1 billion economic engine for the county. There are over 3,000 jobs associated with the airport. Again, I talked about the widening of that road and how we're focusing on that as a jobs corridor. Am I doing okay on time, Vicki?
Absolutely. Take all the time you need, Chris.
Okay.
Please, continue.
Okay. I talked about water and wastewater. We also moved forward with a pilot program for Lakewood Park. Lakewood Park, we have a water line up there that comes from Holiday Pines. Well, Holiday Pines has enough water to produce for the entire section of the north Lakewood Park area. So we were able to do that now. Lakewood Park is largely on well and septic. Well, obviously, back in built in the 50s and 60s and 70s, there weren't as many regulations for health department rules as they are today. Now you have to have 75-foot difference between where your well is and where your septic and leaching field is. Well, the goal now is to actually take them off that so that they don't have to use their well to drink out of, because a lot of those are side by side. So you can imagine what happens with your wastewater from your septic going into your well. So we're trying to move that ahead for health and safety. We went in there, we did one street. Now we have 110 new people who have said, I want that. There's a cost associated to it. But what happens is once you invest in that, and there's a process to putting and connecting to the lines, what happens then? You put in, say, $5,000 or whatever the number is to connect. You save probably $1,200 a year just on your salt and your filters and all that stuff. You're probably paying about $800 a year if you actually connect. What's better yet is the value of your property goes up. And so we were able to get water and sewer in there. I talked to Ken Pruitt several years ago when he was a property appraiser. If it cost you $10,000 to hook up the water and sewer, you'd probably increase the value of your property by $15,000 to $20,000 right off the top. And if you did it in an MSBU or municipal services boundary unit or taxing unit, now you can actually borrow that money from the unit for 20, 25 years and pay it off over that period of time. But the value of the property is already there. You can sell that property tomorrow. It goes to the MSBU, it stays with that property. Then it adds to value. So those are things we're working on. Talk about the utility discussion. Also, what is available to you through public records or just making a request to the county, the planning department, we have digitized now the entire planning diversity, the planners in here. But we have digitized the planning department. Now everything that comes through the door, whether it's a pre-application, whether it's a site plan review, whether it's a property that has already entitlements but has gone silent, if you will, has gone what's the word I'm looking for? Expired. A lot of those are being resuscitated because the market is there. So there's opportunities that already exist out there that somebody can developer can come in and actually resuscitate those entitlements, come back through site plan review, do some conditional changes that will reflect today as opposed to what was here 10 years ago, and move that property forward. Now, there's a map that we have that you can request of all of the sites that are actually in process, that are in the county. There are 65 of them right now, then unincorporated only. That's unincorporated only. It'll tell you where the property is, what they're trying to accomplish, and so on. And it's all color-coded and there are dots on a map. Now, that would be available. I don't know if each of the cities has gone digitized, so it's such an easy view, but you can find out from the cities of Port St. Lucie and Fort Pierce, where are things coming from? What's going to go in? Excuse me. For instance, right off the Citrus Bridge, several years ago, 3 years ago now, I think Rockland came in there. It was a $10 million bill where they're building the concrete railroad ties. That was $10 million. Well, what do you think happened to the properties that were happening around there? Their value went up because they have a $10 million value property coming in there. The Port of Fort Pierce, moving to the Port of Fort Pierce. St. Lucie County invested $27 million of your hard-earned tax dollars to buy 12 acres of the port. That's a stupid investment, isn't it? No, not exactly. And the reason why we did that is because that port has been in play for over 100 years. Unfortunately, we've lost the citrus and the shipping and receiving of citrus from the port. There was a period of time in the 1990s when they actually wanted and had deepened the inlet to 28 feet. Well, it was supposed to become an emerging cyst, meaning that they were going to be doing over 600 million tons of cargo through the port. It never came to fruition. As Miami built into the mega metropolis of all cargo, all of the smaller ports started to fade. The really bad part was this investment that was made there. It was good for Mr. King. He bought it for $3.4 million. He sold it for 25. But that was over a period of 25 years. So why is it important for us as a county to own it? Because we have benefits that private ownership does not get. We can get grants from the state. We can get grants from the federal government, the Ports Council. So as soon as we bought that property, we were able to secure support from FPUA, support from Florida Department of Transportation, the Economic Development Organization of the state, which provided several $1 million to support putting the utilities in, tearing up the road, redoing the road so it was more appropriate for trucks to come and go, and move vessels that may come and go from that area. We underground all the utilities, so there was no issues with overhead challenges. As part of that, we found some environmental issues. Well, St. Lucie County is environmentally sound in what we do and how we approach things. So if it was a private owner, they could just ignore it and just build over it, do whatever. But we found some petroleum and some refrigeration materials in the soil. So we took down the plant, the packing plant there. We found it. We're cleaning it up. We just passed a brownfield resolution last week. So now we're going to be able to get some funds from the state and the federal government to clean it up, not costing taxpayers money, but providing a very good, healthy environmental aspect that is close to the lagoon. That's so important. So why did we buy the port for 27 million? 25 for the part that we bought. We had $2 million invested in 10% stake in the Bell property, which got to us because of a lawsuit between Dean King and the Bells. That's irrelevant at this point. So $25 million. We get money from the state, we get money from the feds, we get money from the Ports Council to actually improve the port. Now, we put out a request for proposals into the universe. We had three start to come in, 2 stayed in the process, and as part of it, we wanted to make sure it was a fair process. We did we had what's called there's a term, and I'm forgetting it, doesn't matter. So 2 operators came in and offered their proposals. One had actually came in and bought their own property, and so they were going to be in business whether they got the nod or not. And then the other one was Director Yachts. They had 5 other port locations along the East Coast. They had 72 years in the business, and so for many reasons, well, you know, their business model, their advertising, their marketing, their 72 years in business is why they were selected. So they now are going to be the port operator. We pay about $1.1 million a year on the bond, which is the port bond. But our agreement with Director Yachts, or Director Fort Pierce, pays us about 1.2, 1.3 on the initial rent. But we also have a sweetener in there that provides for, if they do over, I'm just throwing out a number because I don't remember off the top of my head, $40 million in profit, we get 1%. If they do $50 million or $60 million, we get 2%. So there's a sweetener in there for every time they're successful, more money comes back to the county. Gives us an opportunity to continue to maintain. So they then will be running and operating the port for the benefit of the county, actually for the whole region, because this will be a job maker. And we expect at build out to have over 900 jobs associated with the Port of Fort Pierce. There will be spin-off jobs. There is still 67 acres of what I'll call greenfield that are to the north of Fort Pierce Yacht and Ship directly, because that's the other operator, Director, Fort Pierce Yacht and Ship, and then the Bell family properties to the north. That's 67 acres that could be developed. Now, challenges there are it's getting the family to agree to either sell or to begin to develop. We have a port master plan update, so now you can actually go to the county and ask for what the port master plan is as to what we expect to see forward in the area. We are focusing on, directors focusing on vessels from 200 to 500 foot in length. A niche area that they're looking at are tall mast sailing ships. Why is that important to us? No one in this hemisphere is doing it. We have the only deep water port that takes you from the port to the open ocean without any inhibitants above, like bridges or anything like that. So that's important. It's a niche operation that we have that will put Fort Pierce and keep Fort Pierce different than anywhere else, whether it be Miami or whether it be Jupiter, anywhere along the coast. So now we'll be able to start seeing we are 15 out of 15 deep water ports in revenue. So we want to change that, and we want to become the #1 or #2 in the entire state as a functioning, profitable port for the people of St. Lucie County. 900 jobs is predicted, over $115 million a year in revenue stream, as I said, economic impact, and that's only in the first 4 years. So as everything gets built out and gets changed and fixed and everything starts working, you're going to see a lot of that. Back to the airport. The airport is a major investment. Has about 3,800 acres of land that can be built upon. If you take a look at the geographical area of the airport, you have Melbourne, it's about 70 miles to the northeast. You've got Orlando, which is 80 miles to the northwest. And then you have Palm Beach, which is about 65 miles to the south. So from a geographic standpoint, as airports go, a 60-mile radius is where you use to draw your customers from, your passengers. So we are geographically located in the most perfect place for the next new airport to kick off. As a matter of fact, +1 Air Charters is now located at the airport. I guess I could say it, but there's a new investor that's in town that came in. They not only bought 2 hangars and refurbished them, they're looking to build 2 new 50,000 square foot hangars and actually to build a helicopter training school. You may have heard the fellow that built a helipad on his property in Sewell's Point. Yeah. This is the guy who's the investor. And his company's called Byte, BYTE. He's in the computer business and so on and so forth. And so he has shown a great interest in investing in the airport. So we're seeing a lot of that. I just came back from a P3 conference in San Diego in May. I just was in Fort Lauderdale in June with the Florida Airports Conference. There is so much interest in the airport. If you're going to focus on commercial, start looking at how the ground leases work. Start looking at where the Airport West Commerce Center is on the Kings Highway, just north of St. Lucie Boulevard. St. Lucie County owns 110 acres there. The infrastructure is there. The roads, the sidewalk, the water and sewer is already there. Power is provided by Florida Power Plant. Lastly, all the trust companies up there are expanding, and again, back to jobs. Now I know between you and lunch, so if there are any questions, the zoning maps. You can request and go online to the county, and you can actually pull up zoning maps. If you get them in digital form, if you can't print them yourself, contact the county and ask if you can have that in digital form, and you can take it to, I'm going to date myself, Kinko's, is that still around? Staples. Anybody has a large plotter, and JT, you were talking about they're too small to see. If you can go to a plotter printer, you can get a really large map because those are high resolution digital versions that the county has. So, future land use, zoning, utilities, all of those things are on a map somewhere, whether it's the city of Fort Pierce, whether it's the county, whether it's St. Lucie. All of those exist. The more you know about the land and what's available gives you a leg up on what you're trying to become as a realtor and moving business forward.
What's happening with the hotel?
That is in negotiations with the city of Fort Pierce. They again put that out to bid. It's projected to be an $85 million